What drives? Key factors are weather, topography, and fuels, okay? Like I said, we're butting up against wildland areas now, right? Fuels, tons of fuels, okay? You look at California fires this past year. That fire in Palisades in Los Angeles area, okay? I'm going to tell you, that was a freak thing, okay? The weather was the absolute worst it could possibly be at that particular time. You could have had a fire engine on every block in every road, and I'm not sure those guys would have been able to stop it, okay? Talking with the people down there and looking at some of the after action reports, we have enough fire personnel. We didn't have water, okay? Every single person that I've talked to down there said, we had plenty of water. Having water wasn't the problem. We had plenty of fire guys where we were at. We had plenty of equipment. They said we just could not stay on top of it. The second we thought we were getting a handle on it, the winds would crank up again and it would start blowing things through the neighborhood. And they said there was nothing we could do to stop it. Okay? So topography is obviously shape of the land, right? Fire's going to go uphill usually. But what happens? Fire creates its own weather. Did you guys know that? Okay. I've been on plenty of fires where it's going up the mountain, time of day changes, winds start coming back down out of the canyon, and all of a sudden it's coming right towards us where we thought we were safe. Okay. And that's all because that fire in that canyon will create its own weather and its own wind patterns, and it's unpredictable, which makes fighting it very hard. So there's two ways that wildfires really spread. Surface fires, crown fires, which we'll talk about, but mostly it's ember-driven fires. It's that wind, okay? That's how things get out of control, is the wind. A lot of times you'll have the main fire and you'll have that fire progressing, but by the time you might get a handle on here, you've got several fires downwind that embers have already started things. So you think you've got a control. You hear them talk about containment. Okay, it's so many % contained. And then all of a sudden you see that it's jumped back up and there's not as good containment again. It's either because the weather's not cooperating, or those embers have now flown and started other fires that have taken off again. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more, don't worry, we'll talk about surface fires versus crown fires a little bit later. So we talked about embers, travels miles ahead of the fire, okay? Biggest way is they enter vents, they land in gutters, they ignite decks. The other thing is you can blow an ember a mile away from the fire, lands in cheatgrass, lands in scrub oak, lands in whatever, and it can sit there for a little while until the wind kicks up. And then you've got another started fire, okay? You have what's called radiant heat. That's from nearby burning structures or vegetation. Have you ever seen the old science experiment in class where you light a match and you see how close you can get to the other match with a different match? And you don't even have to touch them. You just get close and it'll jump. That's radiant heat, okay? And then of course you've got the direct flame contact. That's just where it's burning and it's catching the next thing on fire, next thing on fire, next thing on fire. Most homes that are lost in wildfire events are due to embers. It's not direct flame impingement, and it's not the radiant heat. It's embers that have flown ahead and started another fire. So part of the thing is, in preparation and mitigation, it really starts with you folks, okay? What are some of the things that we as firefighters need from our community members? First and foremost is we need homeowners to mitigate their own property, okay? And we'll talk about what mitigation strategies, tactics, and things that you as homeowners can do to help make sure that your yard and your house is better protected. The other one is clear access to your property, okay? We're a little different. We're more of an urban area here, right? But if you live outside in a rural area and you have a big, huge spread of land, and the only way to get onto that land is this little rink-a-dink, maybe little bridge that's over an irrigation or a river or something like that, we're not going to have access to that because we're not going to be able to take our firefighting apparatus over that unless we're guaranteed that it's not going to fall in that, or that bridge isn't going to collapse. So we need to make, excuse me, need to make sure that we have clear access to the property. The other big one, and this is, I don't care if you're rural, I don't care if you're urban, whatever. I spent 18 years on a fire engine, okay? You would be amazed at how many times we're trying to find a house, and as you're driving down the road, there are no visible street addresses on houses. Okay? Either they were there at one point and now a big tree or something's grown over it, or maybe there was a light on it at one point in time, or, oh, you were going to paint the garage so you popped off the numbers, forgot to put them back on, okay? Make sure that your address is visible. This is more in a rural area. If you live on a big plot of property, you need to make sure that your driveways or your access roads are big enough that we can drive fire apparatus in there. They're bigger than a car. They're bigger than a normal pickup truck or an SUV. And if we can't get access, there's a good chance that your property is not going to be saved or even attempted to be saved, depending on the size of the incident. Because we have limited resources, we have limited personnel. We're going to save what we can. And if we don't think we can save it because of whatever that problem may be, access, can't get the vehicle down it, whatever, your house is going to be skipped over and we're going to go to one that we can save. Okay? Turnaround for engines, that's the other thing. Let's say we can get an apparatus down your driveway or your street or whatever. We have to be able to get out if things don't work out well. And so before we would commit an apparatus in, we would have to make sure that there's some way that we can get it out fast, and backing up a fire engine is not fast, okay? So firefighters plus prepared homeowners equals the best outcomes. So part of the Ready, Set, Go program is what we teach. And the number one thing is to maintain your readiness. Okay. I always tell people, what do we do at daylight savings time? What have firefighters told people to do for decades now? You're supposed to do change the batteries in your smoke detectors, right? In the classes that I do, I tell my people, look, this is a great opportunity for you guys to not only check your smoke detectors, it's a great opportunity every 6 months. Check your 72-hour kits. Update them. Make sure that what's in there is still good. Change out the water. Do what you need to do. When does daylight savings time happen? Spring and fall. It's the same thing with being prepared for wildfire stuff. Okay? You should take care of mitigation stuff in the spring. Keep an eye on it over the summer, and then do a good mitigation in the fall, because then when spring comes back around, it's going to be a lot easier. Okay? So to me, daylight savings time is a big thing for being prepared in multiple different aspects of preparedness. So the first one we're going to talk about is what can you do to your house? We talked about how embers are the biggest problem with houses that get destroyed in wildfires. Okay? So first thing is your structural components. Obviously, Class A rated metal, asphalt, tiles do a lot better than wood shake shingles, log cabins, things like that. So the actual building materials that are being used for your houses, your cabins, your properties makes a difference, okay? And I will say this, all of these mitigation things is not going to make everything 100% safe. But each thing that you do gives you a greater percentage of making sure that your house survives a wildfire incident, okay? Vents are huge, okay? You've got things like gable vents, roof vents, How many of you know underneath your eaves, you've got vents across the whole way across your eaves? Okay, most people don't know that. Foundation vents. Every single one of those is a way for an ember to get in and start a fire. Okay, what's up inside your gable vent, roof vents, or under your eaves? What's in your attic? Insulation. How fast does insulation burn? Really fast and real easy. Okay? So one of the things that we recommend for people is to get some 5/8 inch mesh and cover your vents. That will stop almost all embers from getting into those vents. Okay? It's not expensive. It's not hard to do unless you don't have good access into your roof area. Okay? But just spending a little bit of money on 5/8 inch mesh and covering up those areas that would cause problem is a big start. Windows, dual pane tempered glass. I'm going to show you a picture here in a minute to explain what I'm talking about. But we talked about radiant heat can be a problem. That flame doesn't actually have to touch things sometimes to get a fire started. Okay? Radiant heat, we have had fires before. One house is on fire, another house is fairly close, and the second house will start on fire, and we just assumed that an ember or something had gone over and started the roof. And what we found out, that the radiant heat, even though the window next door didn't break, started the curtains or the blinds on fire and started the fire in the other house because of how hot the fire was. Decks are huge, okay? They're not only problems because of what they're usually made of, but they're problems because of what we store on them and underneath them, okay? We'll talk a little bit about more on the next slide. So, weak points to address: eaves and soffits, fences that are attached to your house, because a lot of fences are wood. And what is that? That's kindling leading right up to your house, okay? And then decks are a big issue. So, in the pictures there on the right, how many people have a wood pile either underneath their deck, next to their house, stacked next to the garage, stacked close to the door where it's easily accessible? I do. I admit it. I do. Okay? I have a small yard. I don't have a lot of space, and unfortunately, firefighters sometimes are their own worst enemies. Okay? But that's a potential huge problem. Okay? Guess what? There's good and bad with both. Okay? Because embers will start the wood mulch easier. The problem is if it does start, the rubber mulch burns much hotter, much faster, and the flames are much bigger. Okay? So it might be a little harder to light the rubber mulch, but if it does light, it's going to cause a lot more damage. That's up to you. My preference is rocks around your house, okay? So the other program that we use is called Firewise, and they talk about mitigation strategies. So we talked about the open roofs or sidings, open vents. Gutters are another huge one. I only have pine trees at my house. I have mesh that's specifically made to cover the gutters. Every year, my gutters are full of pine needles, even with the mesh covering, okay? I don't know if there's gremlins that are stuffing that stuff in there. I don't know what it is, but it's important that you can get the things that you can get taken care of, and gutters is a huge one because they collect leaves, they collect twigs, they collect flower, pollen, you name it. And then we talked about wood attached to homes. We talked a little bit about this, and it's that last line. Defensible space is not about, it's about slowing the fire, and reducing its intensity. All of these mitigation tactics are not saying, oh, if you do every single one of these, you're never going to have to worry about it. Okay? But guess what? If I can do all of these things and it gives me a 75% chance, better chance that I won't have a fire, pretty good odds, right? So, little bit about this picture. It's talking about tree spacing, and there's another slide that's a little better, next slide. But One of the things is, look, I know the reason people want to buy properties in WUI areas is because it's beautiful of your house. Okay? Between 5 to 30 feet, you should take out a lot of stuff. It's not saying take out all your trees. It's not taking out all your shrubs. But it's saying you want defensible space between the trees and the shrubs. From 30 to 60 feet, you can have little clumps, but just don't have a big forest, okay? And the farther out you get, the denser it can get. But what you want to do is you want to slow that down. If you've got a wildfire coming and it's got less fuel and less things to jump through or jump to, it's going to slow it down a lot to the point where hopefully it won't get to your house. So this is a little better. So you can see on the far left, it's saying from 0 to 5 feet. It's okay to have 1 or 2 small bushes as long as they're neatly trimmed, and that maybe instead of that mulch that you've got around your house because it makes your flower beds look amazing, put rock. Put rock in. The 5 to 30 feet, they call it lean, clean, and green. Okay? What they're saying is keep your lawn watered if you don't have drought restrictions. Okay? Keep it mowed and clear out a lot of the stuff so it's not as dense. And then 30 to 100 feet, you want to take and make sure that you're cleaning stuff out and it can go thicker and deeper the farther away you go. So it's saying remove all large trees and large shrubs within 30 feet of the home. Now, we here live in an urban area. Most people, especially in the new neighborhoods, do not have acreage that they've got to worry about, right? 30 feet might be your neighbor's house, okay? So this is obviously up to your discretion. You guys know what your dangers are for your particular neighborhoods. Because here's the other thing. Do you have to live along the East Bench to be in danger of losing your house to a wildfire? Okay. How many people live next to a canal? How many people live next to horse property that the owner hasn't mowed down the weeds forever? How many people live next to whatever? Okay. That right behind your property is a potential problem. Okay. So don't think you just have to live up in the mountains to have this be an issue. There's a lot of area here in rural or in urban areas that could be classified as a WUI area. So remove trees, shrubs, 10 feet space between adjoining trees. Here's one thing that I like to do. Now, in my house, I told you I have pine trees. As you can see, I'm a short, petite guy. Okay? If I mow the lawn to get underneath my trees, then I got to go take an extra long shower to get the pine sap out of my hair and everywhere else. Okay? So one thing that I've done for practicality reasons, but also fire reasons, is I've cleared the branches up to where I can walk underneath them. Okay? And I've got a good picture of that here in a second. But remove ladder fuels. So ladder fuels are, okay, you've got grass that then goes to bushes, that then goes to a small tree, that then goes to your big tree. Okay? Those are ladder fuels where it's stepping up in size and problems. So we're trying to do a reverse of that. Those pictures showed get rid of the stuff closest to your house, thin things out, and do kind of a reverse ladder. Because the ladder fuels is how things progress with the direct flame. Minimize the flammable debris. We've talked about that, I think, pretty good. Firewood and other flammable. How many people have a storage shed really close to the house, really close to the wood fence, really close to the garage that has, say, half a dozen 1-pound propane camping tanks, a couple of 5-gallon propane camping tanks, a 5-gallon can of diesel fuel, maybe some camp fuel, a couple cans, jerry cans of unleaded, okay? And it's right next to your house. And guess what? What's that all doing in the summer? It's hot. It's probably releasing vapors even though you don't realize it. You know, if you ever open it, has all your lawn equipment, you can kind of smell the gas smell. Okay? We do that all the time. That's normal, right? But it's a huge danger. Mow grass to a height of less than 6 inches within 50 feet of your home. I don't want to drive away the deer that love to hang out over there. Okay? Well, guess what? That's so thick and dense. Deer ain't bedding down in that. Okay? Funny enough, they'll probably spend more time here than they will up there. But what we've done is, I told you there's 2 types of fires, right? There's the ground fires, and then there's the treetop fires. Okay? If you get something that's burning along through the grass and the shrubs, but it's moving fairly fast, and you've pruned up 7 feet or 8 feet up, that's going to blow right through. It's going to burn everything on the ground, and your tree is still going to be fine. Okay? Unfortunately, the other types of fires that happen, and you see this all the time in the really cool videos on the news of big, huge wildfires, it's where the fire is actually not even on the ground. It's burning treetop to treetop to treetop. And so you'll go through a year after the fire and you'll see trees and the ground that looks fine up 50 feet, but then it's all black and everything above it. And that's because that was a crown fire and it moved from top to top. Okay? This is a mitigation strategy to take care of that on the ground, fast moving. Okay? Because if we can keep it on the ground, even though it's fast moving, the intensity and the flame usually is not that big. Okay, so what do? We talked about being ready. We talked about mitigation, right? So now we want to be set. Ready, set, go. Okay? So being set, what does being set mean? It means being prepared and being aware of what's going on. Okay, you should know what type of area you live in before you start doing the ready part, right? Because you need to know what types of things you're going to have to possibly face. But you need to be aware of what's going on around you, okay? Do your neighbors not take care of their property? Are you the only one in your area that's done any mitigation work? And so you know that probably half the neighborhood's going to burn to the ground, and hopefully it won't affect your property. Situational awareness. Okay, here in Utah, we did not have a winter. Okay, which means that we already have fires that are going,